Last weekend, I was standing on the Brooklyn Bridge in a dense fog, watching the lights of New York City dissolve quietly into the mist, and I realized something that had nothing to do with shutter speeds or lenses. The photograph I was about to make had already begun long before I lifted the camera. It had begun with a feeling. Most people begin photography in the same place. I certainly did. We all learn how the camera works. Aperture, shutter speed, ISO, focal length, composition, exposure. These things matter, and anyone who spends time with a camera quickly realizes that without a basic command of the tool, the photograph never quite becomes what we hoped it would be. The camera demands discipline, and learning that discipline is a necessary part of our photographic journey. But something interesting happens once we pass through that stage. At first, our progress is obvious. Our exposures improve, our compositions become cleaner, and our photographs begin to resemble the kinds of images we admire in books or galleries. We feel encouraged because the improvement is visible and measurable. Then, gradually, and almost without noticing it, we reach a quieter but somewhat uncomfortable point in our journey. Our photographs may now be technically correct, even beautiful in a conventional sense, yet something about them still feels distant. They describe the world accurately, but they do not quite feel like they belong to only us. Many photographers interpret that moment as a signal that they need to learn more technique, another lens, another camera body, another editing method, another set of compositional strategies. The search becomes mechanical, as though creativity is hiding somewhere inside the equipment. But in my experience, the opposite is usually true. Creativity does not begin with technique. Creativity begins with a feeling. Psychologists have understood for a long time that emotions are not simply reactions to the world. They are signals that guide our attention and our actions. We move through our days surrounded by far more sensory information than the brain can consciously process, and so most of what we encounter is filtered automatically. Light, movement, faces, architecture, sound, color, all of it passes through us in a constant stream, and most of it disappears without having any impact. Yet every once in a while, something interrupts that flow. A certain quality of light catches our eye, or the gesture between two people lingers for a moment longer than expected, or a quiet street feels strangely familiar, even though we have never stood there before. Before we can explain it, we feel something. The feeling arrives first, and the explanation may come later, if it comes at all. That moment, that very moment, is where our creativity begins. Last weekend, I was in New York City for a family celebration. A close friend's daughter had reached the traditional 100-day milestone, and the gathering brought together relatives and friends in the way that family events often do. Laughter at one table, quiet conversations at another, and the gentle warmth that spreads when people are gathered around the beginning of a life. Watching that small, beautiful child in her parents' arms, it was impossible not to think about time. A life that has barely begun has almost everything ahead of it. Years of discovery, mistakes, surprises, and moments no one can yet imagine. And naturally, when you witness a beginning like that, another realization quietly appears. Somewhere along the way, you begin to understand that more of your own story may already be behind you than ahead. There was nothing sad about the feeling, but it was undeniably bittersweet. I would not trade my experiences along the way for anything, yet standing there I could feel the quiet passage of time in a way that only certain moments make visible. Later that day, I stepped outside and began walking towards the East River. The city was wrapped in a dense fog that had drifted in from the water. Fog horns sounded their somber songs like tubas with only two notes, and the familiar New York City skyline had softened in a way that felt surreal. Buildings dissolved into the mists. Streetlights hovered in quiet halos, and the sounds of the city seemed strangely muted. Eventually, I found myself standing on the Brooklyn Bridge. I had never done that before. Normally, the bridge is one of the most photographed structures in the world. Its lines are elegant, its scale is dramatic, and millions of images already exist. Carefully composed, perfectly sharp, technically flawless. But that day, the fog changed everything for me. The towers disappeared into the mist above. The cables faded gradually into the distance, and the lights along the roadway became small, glowing orbs floating in the air. And as I stood there, another realization slowly surfaced. I had lived in New York City and on Long Island for many years earlier in my life, and yet, in all that time, I had never actually walked across the Brooklyn Bridge. The city had once been part of my everyday world, but this small experience had somehow slipped past me. Standing there in the fog, after spending the day celebrating the 100th day of a child's life, the moment carried a quiet awareness of time, a sense of return, a touch of nostalgia, a recognition that time moves quietly whether we notice it or not. And suddenly the bridge was no longer just a structure emerging from the fog. It had become something else, a symbol of distance between moments I lived long ago and the moments I am living now. That feeling was what led me to photograph the scene. Not the architecture, not the technical challenge, but the quiet realization that this place, which had once been part of my daily surroundings, had waited all these years for me to finally walk across it. This is the moment photographers often describe when they talk about finding their voice. Not the moment when we master a technical skill, but the moment when we begin to trust the signals that come from our own perception. Instead of asking only, how should this photograph be made, we begin asking a quieter question. What am I responding to here? The camera, which once felt like the center of the process, becomes secondary. The feeling leads, and rightfully so. Now, this does not mean that technique stops mattering. In fact, the opposite is true. The reason we practice technique is that when these moments appear, we can respond without hesitation. A photographer who understands the mechanics of the camera can translate a fleeting experience into an image without interrupting their flow of attention. Technique prepares the ground, but feeling determines where we stand. Over time, photographers who learn to listen to these internal signals begin to see the world differently. They notice subtle changes in atmosphere, people's small gestures, moments of tension between light and shadow that might otherwise pass unnoticed. Instead of chasing spectacular subjects, they begin to follow their curiosity. Sometimes that curiosity leads to quiet scenes that might seem unremarkable at first glance. A foggy bridge, an empty street, a single figure walking through fading light. These are not necessarily dramatic subjects, yet they carry a certain weight because the photographer felt something when encountering them. That feeling leaves a trace in the photograph. Viewers of our photographs may not be able to articulate exactly what they are responding to, but they often sense that the image contains more than description. It carries a fragment of the experience that produced it, not simply what the scene looked like, but what it felt like to stand there, to be in that moment. In a time when photographs are everywhere, when billions of images are made every day and shared instantly across the world, It can be tempting to believe that creativity depends on spectacle or novelty. Yet the photographs that remain with us over time often emerge from a different place entirely. They begin with attention, with a willingness to pause long enough to notice when the world touches something inside us, when light, atmosphere, memory, or time suddenly combine to create a moment that feels, importantly, meaningful. Those moments are not rare. What is rare is learning to notice them and trust them. Anyone can learn to operate a camera, and with enough practice, almost anyone can produce a technically competent photograph. But photography becomes something deeper when we recognize that our emotions are not obstacles to creativity. They are guides. They tell us where meaning might be hiding. The camera then becomes a way of answering that signal, a way of saying quietly and without explanation, this moment mattered. And sometimes, on a foggy evening beside a bridge that millions of people have photographed before, that simple act of attention reminds us of something important. The world does not become interesting because we point a camera at it. We point the camera because something in the world has already stirred our emotions and therefore our attention. Yes, technique enables us to capture the moment, but our feelings are what lead us there in the first place. Our feelings, when we hear them, make us want to photograph, and learning to listen to them may be the most important creative skill we ever develop. This is Ken Evans, a black and white photographer from the Mid-Atlantic. Each week I pass along my photos and thoughts that come from my creative journey. Your reactions and feedback in the comment section are fuel for my creative engine. Thank you for being here. See you again next week.